and welcome to Torsey Waldridge Kitchen Gardener. We can now go over what seeds we can sow for the month of March. I'll give you my 3 top tips for this month and also what you can be sowing direct into the soil. The weather's not too particularly great out here, so let's head in the shed, have a cup of tea and talk about what seeds we're going to sow for the month of March. So these are my top 14 seeds for you guys to be cracking on with at home for the month of March. I've broken them down into 3 categories just to make it a little bit simpler for everybody. So the first category is Brassicas. So with your Brassicas you can now start sowing broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, cauliflower, cabbage and Kohlrabi. My second category is salad crops. So they can be beetroot, lettuce, spinach and Swiss chard. Third category, which I've just got as other, which will be your tomatoes. You can crack on with peas, sunflowers, because sunflower heads are actually edible, and if you get particular varieties you can obviously harvest the seeds. And another one, if you fancy giving something a little bit tropical and you've got a bit of a space in a glass house or a polytunnel, because this plant does get big and it does require a lot of heat, is Cape gooseberry. If you guys need a helping hand with particular varieties for the crops that I have just mentioned, then I will put a list up of everything that I grow variety wise. You guys at home might have your own personal favourites, but if you're new to the game and you just want a little helping hand, then check out those varieties put down below. So I have got 6 crops that you guys can be direct sowing into your soil. Now I do understand that this year has been an absolutely horrendous year. I don't know about anybody else around the UK, but with the quantities of water that we've had with the flooding that's going on, it has been really difficult, nigh on impossible to do anything outside. So I know that as soon as it starts to dry out, the workload out there is going to increase tenfold. And it is going to be a bit of a panicky start, I think, to the spring season. But everything will come good in the end. I do say that every single year, even though I'm panicking like mad at the moment. But if for whatever reason you do have really good soil or it's well drained, then these are the crops that you guys can be sowing direct into the ground, which will be your parsnips, carrots, radish, spring onions, spinach. And also as well, come mid-March, we will be then hopefully planting our first early salad potatoes into the ground. But if you're like me and you haven't been able to get out there and do any ground prep, that could be pushed back until the beginning of April. So I might be a little bit later within the season with doing what I need to do, because you do have to go by the weather. But that is completely down to you guys when you think that it is suitable. I'll keep you updated because it is a particularly odd year this year. So for all the new gardeners out there, don't panic too much about it. Just keep chatting with your local neighbours at your allotment plots, wherever you're growing, or listen to people on YouTube and see what they're saying, and just go with what the weather is doing and not what the seeding calendar is telling you at the moment. My 3 top tips for the month of March are: if you've got a greenhouse or a polytunnel, or you're growing very young seedlings, keep an eye out for green fly. So with all of this beautiful, fresh, tender growth that we're getting, the green fly will absolutely love all of that lovely sugary sap going into that new growth into your plants. And green fly can affect your plants as well. So make sure you keep on top of that. Finger and thumb is obviously a fantastic method. If it's getting out of control or it's going a bit rife, then SB Plant Invigorator, I will put all the information down below. That's brilliant. You can also use Very Liquid, is another way of getting rid of them, but just make sure your water to chemical ratio is good, otherwise you can end up burning your plants. Also, you've still got time to plant garlic. If we don't get a frost, you will find the bulbs don't split, but they're perfectly great. You can just have whole garlic bulbs. So grab some spring garlic and crack on with that. If the ground's too wet to plant in, then stick them in pots and put them outside somewhere, and at least then you can monitor if it's getting too wet, so you can obviously try and put it in a sheltered area where it's not going to get hit by too much rain. And last but not least is allium leaf miner. So I understand that a lot of people will be planting their onion bulbs soon. You might have leeks in the ground from your winter. I sow all my onions and leeks from seed, so I won't be planting those out for a little bit, but just in preparation for that. Allium leaf miner is pretty bad when you start getting it, and you'll notice it's a little brown maggot within the actual crop. So the only way that you can help deter that pest is to cover your crops with Enviromesh. So I've got an early Sensuay onion that I planted out, and I've had Enviromesh over it for the whole of winter. The same as when I come to planting out my onions, I'll cover that with Enviromesh. The main times that allium leaf miner hit is between March and June and September and November. So if you can keep your allium crops covered for those months, then hopefully it will reduce the chance of getting the allium leaf miner. And hopefully it'll be another pest that we can try and reduce the effects of with our vegetable crops. So that is it for this month for seeds to grow and what to crack on with for the month of March. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you are interested, I will be doing a separate video for seeds to sow for the cut flower garden. I don't want to bore you guys, especially if you're only interested in vegetables, but if you are interested in your flower crops to grow, even if you grow them as companion plants with your vegetables, I'll put that on separately. Thanks guys for watching, take care, and I'll see you on the next video. I'll just do a quick glasshouse update. So at the back here we've got the tomato plants. In this tray here I've got my rootstock tomato plants, which I'll be grafting and hopefully doing a video on that. Underneath this little cloche I've got my Cape gooseberries. First year of growing those, so it'll be interesting to see how they grow. Pot dahlias, there for the cut flower garden. I've got a few chilies and peppers still on the heat mat. These guys have come off the heat mat, just harden them up a bit, and hopefully I'll be potting them on next week. These guys have all been potted up. As you can see, they're looking pretty dapper. I'm really happy with them. Got a nice, good variety of chilies this year. Onions at the back there in the trays, and then if we dip underneath, we've got beetroot, spinach, lettuce, spring onions, parsley, and then over this side I've got some cabbage that's been potted up, a giant cabbage for the Henley show, and I've got my celeriac and celery that I'm starting to grow, but everything's sort of just taking a while to germinate at the moment, which is fine. And then I'll quickly poke outside here. I've got some leeks and onions and my broad beans, which unfortunately I haven't been able to get those into the ground, so I've had to put them in pots, and that stuff is going to head down to the polytunnel to be hardened off for when it can all go out.